new experiences, starting new. I have a Facebook link live stream going on along with YouTube as well. So glad you're here. This is combination of and David Manila's here, Johnny's here. So this is New Year. You know me. I love being a test pilot to test new ideas and new perspectives and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm live streaming this on YouTube and Facebook as well, but I want to make sure it's conversational. I want to share, you know me, I want to share ideas and perspectives. And Jen, if you just want to mute yourself, you can, and let's just jump in if you have questions or issues.
Sure. Okay.
So
thanks for being in the pipe.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being a part of this. So for those of you that may not know me, my name is David Nour. I've spent, this is crazy to believe, the last 19 years really being a student of business relationships. And I thought I'd share some observations from this past year, a tumultuous year to be sure, but also give you a glimpse into what I believe has been, will continue to be all of our biggest asset, which is our portfolio of relationships. And in that process, I've been thinking a lot about what did I learn this past year that I can apply, that I should. And that's how I believe growth comes for all of us, right? How do we learn? How do we grow kind of through this process? So let me just give you a couple observations from this past year. This is also the topic of my Curvebenders podcast tomorrow. If you're a subscriber or wherever you get podcasts from, this might be useful to you. But number one, I think you would agree that the pandemic forced us, it really tested the depth of our relationships. If you think about it, before this global pandemic, right, we'd have a lot of coffee meetings and lunch meetings. And in many ways, we confused busy work with progress. We confused activity with forward kind of progress and development of our relationships, right? So it forced us. And the interesting thing about the pandemic wasn't just a region, as you know, it wasn't just an industry, it was everybody. So the fact that I traveled 208 days the previous year and only 22 days this past year says most of us couldn't go anywhere and we couldn't travel and we didn't travel. And regardless of, depending on what data you look at, some still believe something like 50% of travel will not come back, business travel anyway, right? So if we can't get in our cars and go have coffee meetings or get on planes and get on, travel and go to conferences and events and fly to other cities, and we didn't do that, it forced all of us to focus on fewer, but really more strategic, more meaningful, more relevant relationships to where we were and what we're trying to do. So I would submit again, it focused more on the depth of our relationships instead of the breadth of them. It mattered less of how many contacts you had, and it mattered a lot more of how many real relationships you had. So, for example, a lot of people, a lot of relationships, you would just call them in their office. Well, if nobody's working out of their office, if you had their cell phone, you could get in touch with them. But how many people did you have their cell phone for? Or if they're working from home or some other way, or they weren't checking their work emails, did you have personal email addresses for that? So those are just a couple of tactical things that happened this past year that, again, forced us to think about the depth of our relationships, not just breadth. Number two, which is a nice segue from the first one. We all had to become very capable, competent in a video culture, right? I've been doing webinars and stuff for a number of years, and but it amped up Zoom, it amped up GoToMeeting, it amped up any tech we could get our hands on that was reliable. And in some ways, it forced us into a new mindset, skill set, and roadmap. Mindset that I have to be digitally engaging, interactive, immersive with the people that I'm connecting with. If you're joining us on the live stream, YouTube and Facebook, you see my screen, and that's my setup, right? And my kids give me a hard time, like, Dad, can you launch a satellite, NASA satellite from that? But it's basically 2 monitors and lighting and camera, and right, I believe that's the digital footprint we need this day and age. So most people that I interact with appreciate the fact that they say I'm looking at them in the eye, or that my camera is at eye level. It's not looking up at me. It's not looking down at me. And by the way, I don't have some, bright background that makes me look like I'm in the witness protection program, right? All those things are nuances in your digital footprint. And I believe even with a bio solution to this pandemic, we're going to have to elevate our digital presence, our digital footprint. That includes the camera and the microphones and the lighting and kind of this idea of working from anywhere and becoming a lot more flexible in using digital technologies and digital ecosystems to engage our relationships, right? So number one, pandemic really tested the breadth and depth and forced us to focus on the depth of our relationships. Number two, digital relationships are no longer a nice to have. Digital footprint, digital presence is no longer, you can't say, I'll get there at some point. I'll eventually get there. This has now become front and center. And I believe that's going to continue for individuals. That's our brand equity. That's our window to the world, but also organizations. So what do you need? And there's something to think about this year to really elevate, to really upgrade that digital footprint, that digital presence. Which leads me to the third one, and really the topic of this session, which is this idea of the 7 sequence. And it's really a path for you to focus on a fewer, but hopefully more strategic, hopefully more intentional relationships based on what you're trying to accomplish. Again, before COVID, BC, we wanted to meet anybody and everybody. I'm not convinced that's a very smart strategy moving forward. I want to show you why. Because in the after COVID world, I want to meet people who are most relevant to what I'm trying to do. People who are enablers and not inhibitors of where I'm going and how I want to get there. So again, whether you're you're watching us online, or you're joining us in Clubhouse, and I want to make sure, again, jump in with questions, comments. Jen, nice to see you. Zemek, glad you're here. Glad you're watching online. So I'm fairly active on various social channels. This live streaming I'm testing for this new year along with Clubhouse. And I would encourage you to, again, give me feedback. If this is a value, we'll keep them going. But we're fairly active. I'm fairly active on various social channels. So just add David Nour, and then at Nour Group is also our new Nour Group Twitter account. Many of you know Relationship Economics was my first book. That's really what I've become passionate about in the last almost 20 years. Co-Create was the most recent one. I'm really excited that Curvebenders is coming out this year. And Curvebenders in many ways is my Star Wars trilogy. Because if Relationship Economics talked about how to be more intentional about the relationships you choose to invest in, and Co-Create was about how do we innovate, with few but really strategic relationships, Curvebenders is all about nonlinear growth. Curvebenders is all about how do I remain relevant? How do I accelerate that relevance in the future of work? So I'll talk more about that. And I'm blessed to work with some really marquee clients over the years, many of which have become friends beyond just great clients. I'm a big Drucker fan. And those of you who can see this, let me just read it out. The importance and difficult job is never to find the right answer. It is to find the right question. And I think this really resonates this day and age. There are very few things as dangerous, if not useless, as the right answer to the wrong question. So for years, I've been talking about what strategic relationships do you need? So in this image, imagine a networking diagram where I'm at the top and I'm trying to reach, in this case, John Finnegan, who's the former CEO of Chubb Insurance. What 2 or 3 degree connections can I make to get to that individual? And I talked a lot about this relationship, kind of strategic relationship planning process of what are your relationship-centric goals? Who do you need? Who are your current relationship banks? And how do you deposit? How do you invest in those relationships you already have to accelerate your ability to get to some outcomes? And for years, I've been talking about this value pyramid where not all relationships are created equal. And you cannot ask a situation, somebody who you interact with occasionally, to do something for you that only at 2 a.m. would do. That's really a pinnacle of your business relationships. And yet you see this all the time. People you haven't talked to in ages call, reach out, and suddenly want something. And I'm like, I haven't talked to you in years. So you have to give them a reason to connect, reason to engage, and then really kind of add value with every interaction. I deeply believe in with every interaction, you have 2 opportunities. You're either going to enhance your credibility and repute, or you're going to dilute it. And the key is, which one are you aiming to do? And which one are you actually delivering? So one of the things I've done over the last several years is I'm surveying more and more. We're diving deeper into research, and I'm surveying more and more our audiences. So one of the things that I was really curious about this past year was, what's been the barrier to consistency in you building and nurturing relationships? Are you too busy or distracted? Is there a lack of a repeatable process? Is there scattered kind of leadership in both yourself and your organization? Is there a lack of internal systems or infrastructure for you to do that? Is there a lack of your own talent, skills, your thinking style? Or is there a lack of right metrics or incentives? And consistently, I'm too busy. And lack of a system or lack of infrastructure. And whenever I hear that, what really screams at me is whatever we're talking about is just not a priority. Because if my wife says I've got to be at the kids' school this afternoon, guess where I am this afternoon, right? So I've spent the last 2 holidays now really thinking about, what do the most successful relationship builders I know have in common? What do the most successful relationship builders, people who not just know a lot of people, that's transactional, that's a lot of contacts, but people who connect those relationships with value add, what do they have in common? And if you've ever been in my home office, you know how I think. I love whiteboarding and like Jennifer and like using easels. And so I started to just capture 7 ideas, 7 sequences that I believe people who do this exceptionally well understand, internalize, and consistently apply. So here we go. The 7 sequences basically, they're consistent actions to identify, nurture, and sustain what I believe is to be your most valuable business relationships. And nobody does that because they have nothing else to do. In 2021, it needs to be focused on execution, performance, and results. Make no mistake about it. I believe there's an enormous amount of pent-up demand, right? I never thought I'd say this, but I actually miss flying. Right? I miss getting on airplanes and going to different cities to see my clients and speak at conferences and events and put on leadership development programs. I miss that. And I believe 21 will be a renaissance year, as one of my mentors, Alan Weiss, talks about. Because what we didn't get a chance to do physically this past year, we're going to manifest. We're going to bring full on this next year. And it's going to add to, again, a lot of busyness and busy work. And unless you filter out that noise, unless you become disciplined as to what are the most valuable, most relevant relationships to me, and which ones, you know what, I want to take the high road. The view is always nicer from the high road, but I can't afford to invest in everybody equally. So how will I be more intentional in those fewer, but really more strategic, most relevant relationships to me to drive my execution, performance, and results? You're going to spend a lot of cycles. So here we go. Number one, your growth strategy. In 2021, how will you grow? How will you prosper? What does success look like to you? Get specific about that growth strategy. What does it look like? And I love the definition of strategy. This comes from A.G. Lafley, who says, what are the best possible choices for the best possible outcomes? So everybody makes to-do lists. Nobody makes stop doing lists. Everybody wants to meet new relationships. Nobody says, very few people say, these are the best, most relevant, most ideal relationships in my world, in what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm going to focus on these. This profile, this type of an individual, this archetype, this profile, this exact profile. This is who I'm after. I don't want to date everybody. It's been a few presidents since I've dated. But if you try to date everybody, I'm not sure that's a viable strategy. Versus, I know who I am. I know who I'm not. I know what's the right fit for me. I know what's not. And this is as relevant inside an organization as well as it is external to it. So where are you going? How will you get there? Because the other thing that I've learned is people want to help you. They don't know how to help you if you can't be succinct about those two questions. Here's where I'm going. Here's how I'm going to get there. And the best path I know how to build is one of growth. Here's how I'll grow this year. Here's how I'm trying to learn and grow this year. Here's where I'm going. Here's how I'm going to get there. I'd love your help. But you got to start with your growth strategy, your personal, professional, organizational growth strategy. Where are you going? How are you going to get there? Number two, only when you have these are going to build on each other, right? Only when you have that growth strategy will you then be able to identify, and you've got to be very diligent on this, prioritizing your pursuits. I distinctly remember talking to one executive who, I kid you not, told me they have 69 priorities. And my response was, respectfully, you have no priorities. So you've got to take that growth strategy and break it down to 3 to 5 very specific, very actionable set of prioritized pursuits. And I got to tell you up front, that's going to be pretty straightforward, pretty easy for most people to do. You know what's going to be hard? Sticking to it and not getting distracted by shiny little new objects. Oh, squirrel, right? That comes across all of our plates. So what's your growth strategy? What are those 3, 5, no more than 10 very specific and actionable prioritized pursuits? By definition, those should also serve as guardrails, because I'm focused on these 3 to 5. You know what I'm not going to do is go over here. And that's got to be definitive. Again, what's on your stop doing? What's on your not get distracted by? What's on your that's not a good use of your time list? Number 3, a dynamic relationship ecosystem. So what you want to do is map the most relevant relationships to those priorities this next year. And I'm coaching you to focus on fewer but more strategic and the most relevant relationships. This is the classic case of the Pareto principle applies. The 80-20 applies. 80% of your success this year will come from 20% of everybody you know. 20% of all your relationships. Unequivocally true. $1 million question. Which 20%? And who are they? And where are they? And what will you do to focus on those? So the story I want to tell you here is about the UCLA Film School that teaches how to be a filmmaker versus a casting agency who picks the best actors for that role in that movie. Think of 2021 as your movie. Who are the actors? Who are the relationships that are available to you? What roles do you need them to play? Because Al Pacino fits brilliantly in this role. Meryl Streep fits brilliantly in this role. They're not perfect for every role. So you could even have Al Pacinos and Meryl Streeps in your portfolio of relationships, but if they're not relevant to where you're going and what you're trying to do, I'm trying to tell you that's not a good casting call. So what's really important is, how do you link talent or capability to value creation? You have your growth strategy. You have a set of priorities you're after. What relationships? How do you map those priorities? How do you map your relationships to those priorities? So I need to accomplish these 3 to 5. Who are the best people I know? Where do I have my most valuable, my deepest, remember depth versus breadth? Who are my deepest relationships that can help me accomplish this outcome? That's what you want to map. You want to map a dynamic relationship ecosystem based on those priorities. Number 4, allocate resources. And when I say resources, most people think money. Well, that's one of them. But I would submit time is going to be your biggest enemy. Don't we always hear, do you believe it's December? No, I thought, maybe June would come after October and November, right? Sure, we lose sight of time. And I would submit to you, we overestimate what we can accomplish in the short term. I'll get it to you this afternoon. It's already 5 o'clock. When this afternoon? And we underestimate what we can accomplish in the long term. So if you map out your growth strategy, map out your priorities this year, start mapping out that relationship ecosystem. Next is, will you allocate? Will you earmark sufficient time, effort, and resources to support those relationships to deliver on your priorities? People can't help you if you don't make time for them. People can't help you if you don't put that standing call on your calendar on a weekly basis. So I've always hated budget seasons in organizations. Why? It becomes horse trading, right? I'm going to go high knowing it's going to get cut and we'll come up somewhere in the middle. What a complete waste of time versus zero-based budgets that says every year we're going to start from zero and figure out where's the best place for us to invest based on changing market dynamics. Underestimating the time commitments, really key initiatives. If they're a priority to you, it's going to take some time. In pursuit of perfection, again, Alan Weiss, mentor, coach, always says when you're 80% ready, move. I'm a big believer of, with the pandemic, we learned if you're 60% ready, move. You'll figure out the remaining 20 to 40%. But for you to sit around and wait for something to be perfect, you're going to miss the opportunity. As a matter of fact, startups have the saying, if you're not embarrassed by what you put on the market, you've waited too long. You've waited too long. So my goal with this one, is this live stream going to be perfect? Probably not. Is this, right, audio room going to be perfect? Probably not. But you know what? You're never going to learn. You're never going to move ideas forward if you don't try, if you don't test new approaches. By the way, zombie projects, right? I'm pretty sure we've killed that project 15 times, but it still rears its ugly head. How often do you see that? Be intentional about not letting that happen this next year. Get commitments of, that's not a good use of our time and effort. Let's not pursue that. Because what I don't want to see you do with your relationships is confuse vibration with forward motion. Don't confuse the busy work. Don't confuse the busy work with, are you moving these relationships along a continuum? 5, OKRs. OKRs stands for objectives and key results. If you haven't heard about OKRs, I'm going to show you more details in a second. As well as you've probably heard of SMART goals. I want you to think of FAST goals. I'll explain that in a second. So are you measuring the right things? And are you drawing a legitimate line in the sand? Because if you frame the wrong problem, you're going to waste a lot of cycles and have nothing to show for it. If you got bad or missing critical data points, you're going to spend a lot of cycles and have nothing to show for it. If you fudge the numbers, right? If you make stuff up, you're going to have a lot of cycles and nothing to show for it. If you artificially create deadlines, Why does it have to be done by then? Why can't it be done today or tomorrow instead of next week? I've always believed never leave something tomorrow that we can get done today, right? So OKRs are objectives and key results. This came really thought of by Andy Grove, that John Doerr, right, joined into and learned about. He introduces it to Google. He then writes a book in 2017, a great book called Measure What Matters. And OKR is just gaining a lot of adoption. And there's the book, again, Measure What Matters. And it's all about, if you set that growth strategy, if you set a set of priorities, then you better start breaking that down into what are the key objectives? What are my quarterly objectives? What are my monthly objectives? What are my weekly objectives? And what are the key results I'm after that will allow me to make course correction? One of the biggest challenges is you don't do anything differently throughout this year. So if you have OKRs, you can track your progress and make course correction. For example, how many times did you meet with Jim this year? Or let's just say last year. How many times did you meet with Jim last year? How did that help you impact that project, that initiative, that focus? So I don't want you to, when it comes to relationships, confuse busy work with progress, as I've said. So you've heard of SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. It's been around forever. Here's the problem. SMART goals undervalue ambition. They narrowly focus on individual performance, and they ignore the importance of discussing those goals throughout the year. So I believe in, and this is a Sloan Management, MIT Sloan Management article that talked about FAST goals. FAST goals stands for frequently discussed, goals that you talk about on key initiatives on a regular basis. They're ambitious. Your 2021 goals should be difficult. Not impossible, but they should be difficult to achieve. Otherwise, how will you stretch? They should be very specific, right? That one I like. Specific milestones, that's where OKRs come in, right? And they should be transparent. You should put, and I'm going to do this with my relationships, put those goals unapologetically in front of everybody you meet. So you don't waste their time and they don't waste yours. Here's where I'm going. Here's how I'm going to get there. Here's my growth strategy. Here are my priorities. Here are the relationships I have, I need, I'm looking for. Unapologetically transparent with where we're going, how we're going to get there. So not just SMART goals that everybody knows, but fast ones as well. 6, dashboard. Dashboard of leading drivers. One of the things I cringe at, I hate looking at my financials from last month, because you know what? I can't do anything about it. Now, it's one thing to look at reports and understand them. That's great. I'm looking for leading drivers, not lagging indicators. We've got to get more data-driven with our relationships, with our process, with our projects, with our initiatives, and we've got to get more predictive. How can I look ahead? How can I get a dashboard that helps me see predictive information, sentiment analysis, social? I've always believed if you do the right things, the numbers will come. Are you doing the right things? And if you miss the numbers this week, can you move some levers? Can you, right? Not a switch, but a dial to make your numbers and make your OKRs for next month. The key is, how do I get my finger on the pulse of what's happening with my relationships, with my goals, with my progress to make course correction? So Jim, you met with Jim 27 times last year, and you don't have a whole lot to show for it. So I'm polite. I'm nice. Be nice. I take the high road. The view is nicer from the high road. But next time Jim wants to meet, I'm politely asking why. And is that something we can do on a quick call? Because you remember the time and effort it took to get in a car and go meet somebody? Now, we're human beings. We're tactile. We still get a ton of value. And I'm a big believer of those coffee meetings and lunches. By the same token, it's an effort. And we all have 168 hours in any given week. So what's the best use of your 168? So a dashboard of leading drivers. Last but not least, you have to make time to think. 2021 is you got to get away from gut feel and all that to data-driven, past history and course correction. Data-driven, right? What's the best use of my time on any given day, any given week? Bookends, Monday mornings, Friday afternoons. Here's what I'm setting out to do. What did I accomplish this week? What went well? What didn't go well? What will I choose to do? And whom do I choose to do it with more of or less of next week? Because that wasn't a good use of my time. And I don't want to keep repeating that. And I'm trying to tell you, you should be unapologetic about that. That wasn't a good use of my time. So here is the 7 sequence. Again, a recap. You have to have a personal growth strategy. You have to consistently prioritize your pursuits. You want a relationship ecosystem that maps the most relevant, the most capable relationships to those priorities. You need to allocate resources, capital, time, effort. You want to learn about OKRs, smart and fast goals. You want ideally some sort of a dashboard for yourself of leading drivers. What's working for me, what's not. What will I do more or less of? Which rolls right into how intentional are you in analyzing that data? Do you understand causes? Do you understand if your business was down this year, even if it was flat, even if it was strong, where's the demand going to come from this next year? What's the cause of the demand? What's the cause that people want to join you? What's the cause that they want to work with you? What's the cause that they want to buy from you? Because if you don't understand causation and causality, you're going to spend a lot of cycles and not have anything to show for it. By the way, you cannot date everybody. So how will you focus on your ideal relationship profiles so you can stop chasing everybody and really focus on your most valuable ones? I'm a big Gary Hamel fan, and I'm elated that he'll be a guest on our Curvebenders podcast this year. So I love this quote. Strategy doesn't come from a calendar-driven process. I cringe when I hear people say, we're going to schedule a strategic planning initiative. Really? Because COVID proved to us that most strategies went out the window when the global economy shut down. It's about looking at the world in new ways. It's about thinking in new and unconventional ways. And make no mistake about it, the global pandemic is a fantastic opportunity to think and lead differently. So that's all I've got. Oh, I'm really excited. That's what Curvebenders book looks like. Really excited. April of this year, April 27th to be exact, is the pub date. We're going to do a whole lot of new stuff leading up to it, including a new website and blog and newsletter. And we've got a fantastic forum. We've got some great new folks on the team that you'll meet in the coming weeks and months. But that's my contact info. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and answer questions. I got a lot of friends who are here. Johnny Morney is here. Kate Lastinger, hello. David, my friend, how's it going to share the slides in the presentation? Yeah, I'm happy to, Johnny. I'm going to put it in our forum. So be patient, but we've got a forum. If you want to just go to Nour forum, it's nourforum.mn for mighty network.co. Nour forum, Nour forum dot mighty network, mn mighty network.co. That's our brand new private community. That's where I'm sharing a lot of good stuff. That's where, let's see here. Johnny wants to know, right? Will I be sharing some of these slides? Absolutely, yes. And again, go to our private community and we'll share more of that. Other questions, other comments, this is for you. This was intended to be for you. So other questions I can answer about strategic relationships, just type it in the comments section. And again, I'll figure out how to get better at this in Clubhouse so we can have more of a room conversation as well. But the intent, if this is valuable to you, my goal is to offer more of these, do more of these regular live streams, regular clubhouses. Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer Bridges, my good friend, is here. There's Jennifer. That's what she looks like. Peter used to go. By the way, we've created a fabulous series called PM Next. If you're a project manager, or if you know project managers in your world, the PM Next series with Jennifer Bridges at peterusedtogo.com is a fantastic resource with all kinds of, we invited, I think, 30 plus thought leaders to share their ideas and perspectives. We recorded all of them. And we also have a private group in the forum to discuss those ideas about how to elevate your skills, your knowledge, your behaviors as a project management professional amid this pandemic and after it. So again, I hope you'll check that out. So that's it. I'm respectful of your time. I hope this has been useful to you. I hope you'll come back. We're going to continue to, Jennifer, you're welcome. We're going to continue to offer these, both live streams as well as the clubhouse. I'm testing a lot of different ideas. I'm really excited. New website, new blog. If you're active on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, I'm fairly active on those sites as well. Look forward to connecting with you and hope you'll continue to come back to these sessions. It's good to see everybody. Zamek, my friend from Baku, Uzbekistan. Nice to see you. Great to have you, Kate. Happy New Year to everybody. Take care, and we'll hope to see you soon. All the best. Take care, everybody. Thanks. See ya.